Hi friends, this is Amanda from Venus in Virtue. Today I'm going to do a VR to 22 faves, which I saw from Hidden Shrine Tarot. He made a video recently and sort of reviving this hashtag, which I think was made like 5 years ago. It's got a couple different names too, like I've seen 22 faves, I've seen major favorites, but the idea is to go through all of your tarot decks and compare the majors and pick your favorite. So basically creating a majors only deck with your favorites. And I thought it was a really cool idea, and it was really fun to do. To have all my decks spread out across the living room floor, comparing all the fools, the magicians, high priestesses, and really focusing on what that card means to me and which art embodies that the most. So here I've got my deck, but I'm going to slide off screen. And before I get started, I'm going to drink a little bit of tea. And feel free to grab yourself a snack and a cup of tea or something else, because I've already recorded this once and it was like 30 minutes long, but something happened with it, so I have to redo it again. Anyway, here we go. Our Fool. So I chose my John Bauer Fool because I just love the pure joy and innocence in this card. And when I see this card, I can't help but to smile and know that just to live in the moment, you know, enjoy your chocolate chip cookie, because something else might come along, and it will come along, that is upsetting or hurtful. But right now, sit in a field of grass, listen to the birds, eat a cookie, and just be happy. That childlike innocence and joy I really get from this card. So this is my favorite Fool. Next, our Magician. And I chose the Thoth Magician because it embodies both sides of what the Magician means to me. The Magician for me can either mean manifestation, which we definitely get all of this sort of drawing down energy from above, manifesting, creating what we desire. The other side of the Magician is a trickster. So, I mean, look at his little smile. This guy's up to no good. And I really think that this card just embodies both sides of that, because traditionally, magicians, it was, you know, sleight of hand. In the Marseille Tarot, it is your average street magician. Blink and you'll miss the trick. So they were tricksters. So I think this one really embodies both sides of that for me. So that's why I went with that. Next we have our High Priestess, or in this case, Intuition, from the Terra Volatile. So this card I got from the expansion pack. I'm not sure which version they have in their most recent edition, because I have an earlier edition. But to me, the High Priestess really is about combining knowledge that you know, because traditionally she has an open book in her lap, combining that learned knowledge with your intuition, with your gut feeling, and learning to trust yourself. And for me, I think this card really embodies that, and it's just a beautiful card. But I just love all the details. I love the flowers. I love that we can't see her eyes, but she has this third eye over here, and just really knowing to trust yourself and listen to yourself. So that's why I chose this one. Next, our Empress. And I went with the Tarot de Carlotides, because to me the Empress, she's the Queen of Queens. You know, combine the Queen of Cups, Wands, Swords, and Pentacles, combine all their energies together and you get the Empress. So she's the Queen of Queens, and first and foremost, she demands respect, because traditionally empresses or women in power have to fight every single day to be heard at all. Because an emperor, he'll walk into the room and people will listen. And princes have to fight for that respect. They have to command that respect every day. I always think of the TV show Reign when I see this card, because Mary, the main character, was thrown into a position that she wasn't necessarily ready for, and had to fight every day for that respect. That her peers, like the male figures that were in, also in like those authority positions, they got that respect, but she had to fight for it every day. So I just love the badassery of this Empress, and the fact that it's not necessarily about motherly energy. Next, our Emperor. This is from Ethereal Visions. And similar to the Empress in this way, this Emperor does command that respect. It is earned respect. And I love all of the Aries energy that we're getting. So we're getting the red cloak, we're getting all the rams. And I even sort of see in his little curly hair off to the side, it sort of resembles the horns of the ram, which I think is really fascinating. But this Emperor, he's not young. He has been through a lot, and he's made mistakes, but he's learned from them. And now, later in life, he's the Emperor that does command that respect, because he's made mistakes and learned from them and overcome them. So, definitely commands and demands that authority. So, next are Hierophant. And this is from the Mermaid Tarot by Lisa Robertson. Excuse me, down the wrong pipe. I love this Hierophant because it's not about religion, it's about history. And if you don't record history, or if you destroy history, it's going to repeat itself, for better or worse. And while I do love a good shadowy Hierophant that is that more like shadowy religious energy, this one changed how I look at the Hierophant. So that's why I chose this one. I mean, and even in the books we see history and spirituality, something of myrrh, human invasion of 1809, myths and legends of the surface world. Like, if you don't record history properly, it's going to be misconstrued. And we've seen that in how our history has been recorded. And it could even dive into the whole history is written by those in power, which is absolutely true. I just love that this card takes a completely different spin on the Hierophant. But this mer person is writing down the history of her people so that it's not forgotten, so that it's not lost. I just love it. And to kind of, I guess I'll show the runner-up for that card, just because a Hierophant is the card that means the most to me, because it is Taurus. It is oftentimes, I don't want to say misconstrued, but it's a lot of people have a hard time with this card. And this one from the Tarot Noir was my runner-up, because it is that shadowy, religious Hierophant. I mean, look, the two people, it's literally sheeple. Literally sheeple. Like, this is everything I want in a shadowy Hierophant, but the Mermaid Tarot Hierophant redefined how I look at that card. So this was a very, very close second, but I did ultimately go with the Mermaid Tarot. Next is our Lovers, which is also from the Mermaid Tarot. The reason I chose this one is because I love that it's not about romantic love, which the traditional Lovers is not necessarily about love. I think it's sort of misconstrued because it is Adam and Eve in that card. that it is about romantic love, but it's more about two sides of ourself, looking at both of those sides, and that choice to follow a certain path. Because here we have our merfolk, and they see what their life could be. But it's also about not getting stuck in the illusion and dreaming too hard that you forget to live. Because this person may not be able to ever go to the surface world. And it's reconciling that and knowing that that is okay, but still having that dream. So there's so many things about this card that I love, and I could honestly do like a whole video on it, but I don't want to take too long in today's video. But this is from the Mermaid Tarot, Lover's card. Next is our Chariot, which I chose from the Druid Craft. Now, I love this Chariot because for me, Chariot is not about movement or motion. It's about reflection and making that decision and taking that decision that you've made from the Lovers and starting to go down that path. Because if we look at the traditional Chariot in the RWS or the Thoth here, just because I happen to have this one out, the Chariot, it's not moving. This rider is meditating. So it's taking that moment of pause and knowing that you have a choice and starting to plan out the direction you're going to go. And this card is like a second right after that, where she's starting to move forward, but you know, there's not a ton of movement here. There's some, but it's not like we're not going 100 miles per hour. We're just sort of starting, going down the road that we have chosen. And I love that it is a female rider. We still get the white Sphinx and the black Sphinx, or in this case, white and black horse energy. I just love it. I love that we're seeing diversity because it's a female of a slightly larger body size, and it's just great. I love this card so much. Sorry if I start to ramble. I'm trying to still kind of process my thoughts. But it's fun to do that. You know, it's really fun to look at why a card means what it does to you and what really holds true to how you read tarot. Next, we have the Strength card. And how could I choose anything other than the Northern Animal Tarot? I mean, the rabbit taming the wolf. It's that gentle strength that you have to dig up from within to be able to conquer your inner beasts. Love it. Next we have our Hermit, and I went with the classic Centennial image here. Because for me, the Hermit is, yes, it's about introspection and sort of taking a step back and doing some self-reflection. And I think this card really does a good job of combining that sort of literal hermit mode without making it too shadowy and too, I guess, like glamorized. Because he's on top of the cold mountain, and I mean, for example, in Ethereal Visions, we have the same cloaked figure, but he's looking up, like he's confident, and that's not really what Hermit means to me. It's the necessary reflection that's not easy. And another one that I was deciding between was the Terra Volatile, which is very, very dark and shadowy. And I think this one balances those two very well. Like, this Hermit knows that he needs to go on top of this mountain, be alone and self-reflect, but he also knows that it's not going to be forever. You're not going to be stuck in that shadowy place forever. Still have your lantern, shining a light on what you need, looking inward, because it's not an easy time. So I think this card does a really good job of sort of balancing those two sides to the Hermit. Next, our Wheel of Fortune. I chose from Ethereal Visions because for me the Wheel of Fortune is, the wheel is going to keep on turning. And it's all about how you handle it. Are you going to flail around and sort of hang out on the outskirts of the wheel and just keep rolling and rolling and let the wheel roll you over, and then like it's very high highs and very low lows? Or are you going to find stability in the center spoke of the wheel and say, things are changing, but I'm going to hold on and make the best of it? And I love that this card in particular, it's very fate. Like it has that level of fate to it, because yes, you can make choices and each of those choices is going to determine your fate, but at the end of the day, sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes shit just happens, and it's really about your attitude and how you handle that situation. Next we have Justice, and I chose from my restructured John Bauer. This was originally the Emperor card, but I see it as Justice because it's about who really holds the power here. Is it the big guy sitting in the chair, or is it the little people? Is it the community? And if justice is not being served from those in power, the community has the power and the right to stand up and present the truth. Because justice is not always fair. Sometimes the justice that is served is not right. So it's up to everybody to say, this is what is right. This is what is true. So do what is right. I'm always reminded of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where I think it's Esmeralda. I'm so bad with names. Esmeralda stands up and she says, justice. And then the bad guy, he says silence. And I think that is sort of really captured in this card. I might even be sort of getting that out of order. Maybe it's silence and then justice. But I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is those in power don't always do what is right. So it's shining a light on that and speaking up for what is truly right so that justice is served. Wow, big tangent. Okay. I'm going to take a breath, take a sip of tea that is now cold. Okay. We can get through this. Hanged Man. I chose Ethereal Visions because I love that it is not just that meditative, oh, I need a new perspective card. This is the sentence from justice has been served, but I have the power to get out of it, but I still have to be careful, because if we look, the Hanged Man untied his rope, but if he lets go, he's going to land on his head. So it's about not thinking irrationally, about thinking rationally and taking that pause that we see in the traditional image, but you can't wait too long. So take action, but know what's going to happen once you take that action. And are you willing to do so? A great, great, great card. My favorite. Next is Death. I chose from the Thoth Tarot because I just love this image. I love the fluidity and the movement and the colors. And I think it's really just a beautiful card. But it does still boil down to how I see death, and that is hashing away at what you need to let go of in order for that new growth to come through. And so we see the skeleton with the scythe, like he's hashing away at what needs to die. So that way what needs to grow has the space to do so. Beautiful, beautiful card. Next is Temperance, which has honestly always been a difficult card for me. Temperance and Judgment have always been tricky and difficult for me. But for me, the classic Smith-Waite Temperance embodies what it means to me, which is inner growth for outer harmony. And that is taken directly from this book, Modern Witchcraft Book of Tarot by Sky Alexander. And in my copy I have it underlined and like circled because it's about that balance. Because we have all the harmony here. We have that balance. We have the water flowing, foot on land, foot on water. And we've gone through all the growth that we had to go through. From justice, from the hanged man, and death. And we're starting to find that harmony. And I think this card just really embodies that for me. Still a difficult card, but that one's my favorite. Next we have the Devil, which is from John Bauer. And so this I love because this image is literally very dark, but it's also, we have our devil figure who, one, stole your fruit, like, rude, but he's also leaving a trail behind. He's tempting you to follow him to get it back. So it's about, are you going to be tempted by this trail that is left behind? Are you going to be tempted and distracted by what you think you want and you need? Or are you willing to go in a different direction and say, no, I'll just find some other fruit somewhere else? I love how like menacing and evil the character looks, and it just really embodies that temptation aspect for me. Next we have Tower from the Mermaid Tarot. And this is my favorite because if you look closely, there's no people in this deck. And in the guidebook, Lisa Robertson writes, the merfolk felt it coming. They felt the first tremors of the earthquake coming, and they knew to get out, and they did so. So it's about knowing when to get out of a situation and then acting on it, because you can know that you need to leave and then not do it, because this is their capital, right? Of course they don't want to leave, but they knew that if they stayed, they would be destroyed. So they got out. They're willing to build their home somewhere else. Oh, so good, so powerful. Next we have our Star. This is from Ethereal Visions. I love this one because it has that very gentle energy for me. And after everything, after the Devil, after the Tower, we have this moment of peace. And for me personally, this is also very much a self-care card because I often pull this when I have a very physically demanding day and need to, soak my feet or, just do some self-care to physically feel better. And it just has, like, the woman's expression is just very peaceful, very calm. And even though all this crazy stuff has happened, she's still finding that inner joy. I just love it. And it's a physically beautiful card. Next we have the Moon. How could I choose anything other than my Ethereal Visions? This card is my deity in a card. This card helped me discover my deity, Adianrod, who is the Welsh goddess of the moon, but also of death and cycles and the silver wheel, who reigns in the northern lights, but comes down to the ocean to collect the souls of the deceased. So I get that in different parts of this card, but I also see myself in this figure as well, because she's looking up at the moon, looking to something bigger and greater than herself. And for me, that is the moon. That is Adianrod. So this will always, always, always be a very special card for me. Just saying thank you for a moment. Next we have the Sun, and I chose the Thoth because the colors are just so bright and so happy to me that no other card really has this brightness and this joy quite as much as this one does. Northern Animal was a very close second for me for this, but I did ultimately go with this mostly because of the colors, but also the symbolism that Harris put into her artwork and that Crowley wanted put into this card. I think it just Like we have our dancing babies. We have this hilltop, which is our goal, and we're so close to it. And then we have this bright, shining, beautiful sun with the flower inside, the zodiac around it. Like there's so much to this card. But I look at this card and I smile. I can't not be happy when I see this sun card. Next we have Judgment, which is my other tricky card. For me, Judgment is about shedding and taking that final step to reach fulfillment. It is letting go of what you need to, similar to death, but it's sort of that last call. It's like your last chance to let go of anything that might be remaining. And to me, the northern animal connects it to that animal energy, which makes it more digestible for me. Because all the time I see moths going to the light. They're answering the call, if you will. So it can also be about temptation. Like, are you tempted by this light? Are you ready for it? Because maybe this moth isn't ready for it yet, and that is why they're burning up. And that's why all the other moths are like waiting. They're frantic. They're saying, wait, don't go. You're not ready. So it's about, are you ready to go to that light? Are you ready to go into the flame and let go? Or do you still have more work to do? Yeah, still a very difficult card for me in some ways, but I think this one has multiple different ways that it can be read, so that helps me in a reading. Okay, last but not least, we have the world, or in this case, the universe. This is from the Thoth Tarot. For me, this is just pure embodiment of fulfillment. It is not just the world, it's the universe. So it's even bigger than the world. We still have our cyclical energy. We have our yin and our yang. We have, you can almost see it like an eye here, or it could be resembling of a womb of the female reproductive organs that you have to come from. You are birthed from most of the time, unless you are born via C-section. But this just has that blissful, cyclical energy that yes, you have reached this fulfillment, but the cycle is going to start again. So take this moment of peace and of fulfillment and be ready for the next lesson. Be ready for our next Fool moment. Okay. This was so fun. That is my 22 faves, my favorite majors, major favorites, whatever you want to call this tag. It was so fun to do. Let me know down below if you guys have done a response as well. I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about my favorites. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would love to hear from you. On your way out, feel free to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But guys, before you go, please remember, you matter, you are loved, and you can make a difference. Bye everyone.